Hi, this is pharmacist Curtis Alexander. In this video, I'm going to be going over my own personal Hashimoto's diet. It's going to be a broad overview. I'll get into some specifics, but I want to give you an idea of what I do. I'll give you an idea of what I eat in a somewhat regular day. This isn't the only thing I've done. I've instituted some other protocols. They're all natural. They're things that I've researched a lot because I'm a nerd. But I put those in my life. If you want to learn what those are, go to curtis-alexander.com. I have a free report. Sign up and I'll send that to you. But I want to hop right into this. So I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's roughly 3 or 4 years ago. I was not feeling well, struggling with some health issues, just not sleeping well, just didn't feel very vibrant. And I was very surprised by the diagnosis because I was doing everything right. I was doing a lot of the popular things. So step one for me was to take a step back and just kind of look at everything I was doing, research the biochemistry. And so the biggest thing right off the bat was I had to get things out of my life, out of my diet that were hurting my thyroid. And surprisingly, this will go against some of the more popular things you hear, okay? So first of all, I was doing fasting. My particular version, people say intermittent fasting, that's actually a misnomer. They're doing time-restricted feeding, which means, in my case, I would fast for 16 hours and eat in an 8-hour window. It's not good for your thyroid. A lot of people who try that and have thyroid problems struggle mightily, but they keep doing it because, oh, it's autophagy and you have to do this and it'll help you lose weight. And it's like, that it's not some sort of magic bullet, and it's harmful for a lot of people with thyroid issues. So I stopped doing that. That also kind of includes OMAD, which is 1 meal a day. I stopped doing that. Next thing was to tackle goitrogens. You're going to hear a lot of people say, well, you need to get vegetables for the micronutrient content. I think that's false. I never really enjoyed vegetables that much. Some of them are goitrogenic, kale, the cruciferous vegetables. And I don't enjoy eating them. This has to be sustainable. The way you eat has to be sustainable. And I just don't think they're that beneficial for you. I know that's going to make people's heads explode by saying that, but I'll get into what I do now that I think replaces any need for vegetables. If you enjoy them, go ahead and eat them. Just stay away from the ones that are goitrogenic. Other things, I stopped nuts, seeds. I was eating a ton of those. Those can be goitrogenic. I never ate soy, so that wasn't a concern. I still eat some nuts, like I'll have dark chocolate with almonds in them. Not a big deal, but overall I try not to consume too much. Beans is another thing I've all but eliminated. So those are some things to keep in mind. I was also really big into the zero and low carb world. I did this for over a decade. I'm talking carnivore and keto primarily. I even went vegetarian for a while, which I hated, and I considered it basically purgatory, but keto and carnivore I did a long time, and you need carbohydrates for proper thyroid function. They're very beneficial that way. I'm not saying you have to eat a ton of carbohydrates, and carbohydrates are a dirty word. We're going to get into what I mean by healthy carbohydrates and not healthy. But carbs are good for your thyroid. So stop. If you think low carb is the only way to go, it's not. I feel better at 46 than I did at 26. I made some mistakes along the way when I transitioned, but it's something to keep in mind. Carbs are not the devil. Okay. Next, once we get rid of some bad stuff, we need to bring in better things. We need to nourish our body, and what we need to focus on is micronutrient dense foods. One of the best ones is grass-fed liver. I'll be honest with you, I've started doing this. I feel much better after I have liver. It's not easy to eat. I used to sear it on both sides and eat it that way, and as gross as it sounds to some people now, I find it much easier to eat it by just thawing out a frozen chunk, cutting it in slices, and just downing it. It has much less taste taking it raw. I don't recommend to anybody that you do it that way. That's just the way I do it, and it's a way that's sustainable for me. And liver is really Mother Nature's multivitamin. I don't know a better way to put it. It's, if you can get it in your diet, do it. It's very beneficial. So are eggs. Usually have a couple eggs a day. I'll get into that more in a second. Grass-fed beef. Next is carbs. My preferred carb sources are fruits and potatoes in all shapes and forms. I don't limit it. Some people are like, oh, you need to have tropical fruits. I'm like, if you like fruit, eat fruit. They're very micronutrient dense. Okay, so are potatoes. A lot of people have this false conception that there's no nutrients in potatoes. Look it up. They're loaded with nutrients. Dark chocolate is something I consume raw. Carrots will help with bowel movements. It will help with eliminating estrogen from your system. Sauerkraut, probably the best, one of the best probiotics in the world. I try to get a spoonful of that a day. So that gives you an idea of what I try to include in my diet. That's been helpful for me. A good question is milk. I have nothing against milk. I think it's great if you can get as raw as possible. That's very difficult to come by. I find most store-bought milk is garbage, so I don't have as much of it. What I do substitute, and I'm not saying it's the highest quality, but I do enjoy Greek yogurt. Forgot to put that up there. So I do have that. Next thing is sleep. Once I did these two things, I noticed one of the main benefits I got was improved sleep. I used to wake up a lot at night, have trouble getting back to sleep. I still do at times, but it's very infrequent. So that's one of the main benefits I noticed, but it's one of the things you have to also help Hashimoto's, to help recover somewhat, is to get better sleep. But it's hard to get sleep if you're doing these things wrong. So get this in line. I think you'll find that your sleep begins to improve. Number 4, you have to be willing to experiment. If you Google this stuff and you look at Hashimoto's, everybody's got their protocol and they say theirs is the best. Take what sounds good to you and what makes sense, put it to work, and then experiment. You may find that somebody, for example, does well on 300 grams of carbs a day. And I've had people come to me and go, man, when I get over 150, I don't feel as good. Then don't go over 150. Just make sure you start out with a balance, see how you do, and then go from there. So be willing to experiment. If you had told me 3 or 4 years ago I'd be eating liver 4 to 5 times a week, I would have called you crazy. But I see the benefits now, so be willing to experiment. What about supplements? Supplements should be one of the last steps. I'm not saying supplements can't be beneficial. They can. The same goes for prescription medications. A lot of times you're going to need them. If you have Hashimoto's, I was on MP thyroid, which is another Armour thyroid, a T4, T3 mix. It can be beneficial. I think it's a good thing to try. The same thing with supplements. I just wouldn't rely on them. Get these top 2 things in line first, then talk to your doctor about supplements, talk to your doctor about medications. One of the problems I see with people who have any sort of thyroid problem is we chase labs. It's like, oh, your TSH is this and your antibodies are this, and we're worried about these labs. One of the things I did is I focused more on my morning body temp and my pulse rate. Okay, and this used to be something that was done very regular back in the 30s when somebody had thyroid problems. Those were the 2 things they looked at. If your morning body temperature is at the right spot and your pulse rate is the right spot, that means you have a healthy metabolism, that your thyroid is healthier. Okay, we can chase labs all day long and get you off on the wrong track. So next thing is alcohol. Some people say, oh, you can't have alcohol. I drink alcohol. I probably have 1 to 2 drinks a night. I have for a long time. It's a personal decision. My point is that you don't have to cut out things that are enjoyable to you in your life just for the sake of being perfect and all these things. If alcohol is a problem for you, stay away from it. If you don't feel good, stay away from it. If you're okay like I am a drink or two, it's like, cool, do that. But this has to be sustainable for you or you'll never get where you need to go. Now let's just talk about, I'll give you a quick example of what I ate. We'll just use yesterday as an example. So I'll get up in the morning and I'll immediately have a piece of fruit with some coffee. I like my coffee black. I used to have cream and honey in it. I didn't enjoy it as much. So now I just have a piece of fruit. I don't want my body stressed in the morning. I've come off an 8-9 hour fast. I want to give it a little bit of food so cortisol isn't up. The coffee also raises cortisol, so it kind of balances that out. Next, in an hour or two, I'll have breakfast, which usually is either liver or eggs. I'll have a couple of eggs over easy so the yolks are runny. I make homemade sourdough. Yes, you can eat sourdough if it's homemade and you make it the right way. That's very important. So I'll have a couple eggs on sourdough, a piece of fruit, and probably call that good. My lunch was usually leftovers, maybe I'll have, like the other day I had some leftover shrimp, so I'll have that. It was sauteed in butter, so I've got a fat, a protein. I'll mix in a little bit of carb in the form of fruit again, usually. And then in the afternoon, I'll have some bone broth. I'll usually have a couple cups of bone broth. And then for supper, yesterday I had ground beef, and then I cooked up some Yukon Gold potatoes in butter, liberally salted, put that over the ground beef with cheese and some salsa. And it was kind of like sort of a taco type dish. It's just something I like to throw together. Once in a while, I'll substitute one of those meals, maybe a bunch of Greek yogurt, fruit, honey, a little bit of homemade granola. Again, I'm not trying to stay perfect, so there were nuts in the granola and oats, which isn't something I would normally do, but I like the crunch, it tastes good, so I'm not perfect. But all in all, that's an example of my day of eating. Again, I feel better, I sleep better, my temperatures are better, my pulse rate's better. I'm not perfect, I'm not where I want to be, but it's a heck of a start. So let me know if you've had Hashimoto's, you have it, you're struggling with it, what do you do to help it? Post it in the comments. It helps me know that I'm putting out content that's helpful for you, and it helps other people who watch the video. Okay, so speaking of helpful, I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks.